This video presentation has been classified by the ABC as M. It contains material that is not recommended for persons under 15 years.
As well as watching this vodcast, you can watch Good Game on ABC2 every Monday night and ABC1 late on Friday nights.
Good game!
Okay, let's get this show on the road. As you know, we have syndicated the decision for next year's paradigm shift, also known as SIDNIPS, content-wise. We want you to take things to greater than or equal to the next level. I want you to think about the synergy, the energy in synergy. What does it mean? How can we achieve it? Why be such a noob?
Follow, follow! Quick sticks! This way, this way.
Badge, I think he was trying to tell us something. Look at all these old consoles.
Hang on a sec, Hex. That was no ordinary gaming spectre. That's the ghost of gaming past. I can feel a backwards compatible coming on. The naughties couldn't have got off to a bigger, brighter and better start with the launch of the stupidly successful PlayStation 2 in 2000.
Sony PlayStation 2.
When we got our hands on games like Time Splitters, Burnout, Final Fantasy X and the magnificent Ico, the previous generation of blurry N64 games and clunky PS1 polygons were obliterated in an instant.
Sony's decision to switch from CD to DVD also made the PS2 more of a general home entertainment system. The DualShock controller evolved to include a set of fully analogue buttons to go with its sticks, though only 2 controller ports meant that gamers were still lumped with a multi-tap adapter should a 4-player session be on the cards. One very important bit of software made its debut on the PS2 and would go on to influence the industry in a profound way. With Rockstar's Grand Theft Auto 3, the sandbox game was born. The PS2 still holds its own to this day. In fact, it only officially went on sale in Brazil last month. I know, weird.
After observing how Sony moulded the PlayStation brand to become synonymous with video gaming, Microsoft stepped up to the plate for their slice of the rapidly expanding games industry pie. The Xbox copped criticism on debut for being a PC squashed into a big black box, with a controller like an oversized potato. But the weight of Microsoft's marketing very quickly moved the Xbox into the minds of the mainstream.
The Xbox scored a few console gaming firsts. It had an 8GB internal hard drive, making saves a cartridge-free process. And more importantly, it introduced an integrated online multiplayer service, humbly dubbed Live.
Xbox launch titles like Project Gotham Racing, Oddworld Munch's Odyssey, and Halo Combat Evolved matched Sony punch for punch when it came to visual wow factor. Even Nintendo, left stumbling after the cartridge-based N64, were willing to weigh in with a serious technology upgrade this time around.
Let me introduce you to our new baby. Like all babies, it is small, but it will make a lot of noise.
Codenamed the Dolphin while in development, the GameCube was, in some ways, typical Nintendo, stubbornly rejecting the popular DVD format for its own proprietary mini-optical discs and housing its hardware in a weird purple cube that wasn't even technically a cube. Here was Nintendo continuing to distance itself from the MTV generation hardcore that Sony and Microsoft coveted. And it had a handle!
Early GameCube releases like Luigi's Mansion, Super Monkey Ball and Star Wars Rogue Leader impressed, but the GameCube seemed destined to languish in third place.
The GameCube controller, while as ergonomic as a handful of butter, was probably Nintendo's wake-up call as to how confusing these complex controllers were starting to look to the average person on the street. To be a gamer now meant studying a complex diagram of controls every time you wanted to play a new game.
While the first few years of the decade heralded the beginning of an almighty console war, the PC was continuing a golden stretch of games, despite a minor hiccup in 2000 with the laughably suckish Daikatana from John Romero. Massive releases like Diablo 2, Baldur's Gate 2, Deus Ex and The Sims helped to keep the PC well on top. It was an expensive habit to run a decent gaming PC in the early part of the decade.
Morrowind, Doom 3, Half-Life 2, these were games that brought millions of desktop PCs to their knees with vertigo-inducing system requirements. And in the case of Half-Life 2, a digital distribution platform was introduced in the form of Steam. You had to install Steam and register your copy of Half-Life 2 online before being able to play, which annoyed many a gamer.
While the hardcore tweaked their water cooling systems, the humble Game Boy was getting an upgrade of its own. The Game Boy Advance hit the scene in 2001 and enjoyed a few years of love with gems like Advance Wars and WarioWare, Mega Micro Games, before the revolutionary Nintendo DS came a-knocking in 2004. Titles like Brain Training and Nintendog started to appeal to people outside of the typical gaming sphere. Soon, mums and dads were tapping out Sudoku and taking the advice of Olivia Newton-John that the DS was a system for everybody, not just gaming nerds. Nintendo were clearly onto something.